Hey everyone, it's Michael GoosebumpsFan. Today I'm going to be talking about another thing like Goosebumps. Of course, this month, at the end of the month, we have a new remake of The Invisible Man by Universal Pictures. It's actually directed by Leigh Whannell, who directed and co-directed some of the Saw films, or at least the first one, and I think he co-wrote the second and third of the Saw films. The new film looks good, by the way. He worked on the Insidious films. I think he directed 3 and 4. I think he's going to work with James Wan on making and directing the 5th one that's coming out this year in like May. I love Leigh Whannell. I also said Wee Whannell, whatever that is. Can you imagine your name being Wee? Anyway, Leigh Whannell's making the new remake. I'm really stoked about that, of The Invisible Man. And I just reviewed the first film. I want to review now the sequel that stars Vincent Price. Yes, the very famous Vincent Price, who'd been moved. I think he did movies for like 2 years before this. And he was in The Invisible Man Returns, which is a 1940 film. The Invisible Man Returns came out almost like 7 years after the first movie, and it's okay. I don't love it, and I certainly don't hate it at all. It's just okay. It has some okay special effects, a lot of situations where you have like a gun floating across, like in the midair that the Invisible Man's supposed to be holding, and you'll see strings everywhere holding that stuff. To me, when I watched the Claude Rains film from 1933 that James Whale directed, he did not direct this one, by the way, I don't see many things like that. All the practical effects, like the stepping in the snow, like the footprints in the snow, was just freaking incredible. It was so beyond that time, you know? And it seems like it was so beyond that time that the 1940 movie cannot master a lot of those special effects. Now, there are some cool ones in here. One of my favorite scenes is towards the end of the film with the policeman and the smoke machine. That was pretty cool. But I'm not going to spoil everything for you in case you haven't seen the film. This is very much a thing like Goosebumps in the sense of we have an invisible character, or a couple of invisible characters for that matter, in the Goosebumps R.L. Stine universe. So that's pretty cool. This is clearly an influence on him. At least the first film with Claude Rains is. I think if you're a fan of any of the Universal monster films, you're pretty much a fan of all of them for the most part. For the most part. They're not all perfect. In this film, Vincent Price himself is a man who has been accused and framed of killing his own brother, and he has been locked up in jail, and he's trying to find a way out. He's tried all these different friends of his to try to figure out ways that could get him out, somehow. Not like trying to jailbreak or anything like that, but that's kind of the final option. But in a weird way, we'll get into that in a moment. It's kind of predictable because it's an Invisible Man film. But he's tried to get his friends to call in like favors and stuff to try to get him out of there somehow. And it has not worked out so much. And he's like an hour away, or 20 minutes away, or 2 hours away from being hung when his friend comes to visit him and brings him this experiment they've been working on where they can turn people invisible if they take like some kind of pill or something. I don't know, something like that. Well, he takes the medication, and in front of 2 police officers, when he walks around the corner in this weird like prison jail room, he disappears and they can't find him. They just find a pile of clothes because he has to get naked to be completely invisible because his clothes aren't invisible. And the Invisible Man himself this time around is not the same one as the Claude Rains one. Of course, it is Vincent Price. And this is before Vincent Price became the fun loon that we all loved, that would howl at the top of his lungs in like the House of Wax movie. It's not that Vincent Price. It's a fun Vincent Price, but he's kind of not where Vincent Price is legendary for being yet. He's still young, really young. He's probably like 20 here? I don't know. He's very, very young in this movie. But he's fine for the most part. The thing is, with this invisible serum, once again, now that he's invisible, he's going crazy. And I've noticed too with this film, when he walks around with the bandages after he escapes from prison, he finds like a trunk of clothes out in the wilderness and stuff that he put out there. When he finds the trunk of clothes and starts putting all of his stuff on like bandages and all that, he wraps himself up to look like the Invisible Man that Claude Rains was on the cover of this DVD box set here that I just showed you. This is clearly the Claude Rains Invisible Man. And even finds the glasses that are like identical to and puts them on. It doesn't look as good. I don't know if that's Vincent Price in that costume, but it doesn't look as good. He's too tall, his head's a little bit tall, you know, so it doesn't look right. It's like if I put on a costume with my chubby self to dress up like the Invincible Man, listen to me, the Invisible Man, and had like the robe and everything, and just had my belly hanging out. You know, it just wouldn't look right. It's weird. It doesn't fit right. And that's the way it is here with Vincent Price as the Invisible Man with the bandages. But when he's just walking around doing stuff to people, like, it's fun. And he is going crazy because of the serum, just like it was with the Claude Rains film. Pretty much all of these movies, except for The Invisible Woman. And also the Invisible Agent. They don't do that either. I just saw that for the other day for the first time. That's pretty great, too. But we'll get there when we get there. This movie is just as average and mostly bland as it could possibly be. It feels like a really bland sequel for the most part. It's not great. It's not really humorous like the first film. It's just kind of got its little things here and there that are kind of funny, but more like things with the gun that floats that has the strings on it that are very, very obvious, even though this day probably weren't back then with the camera style and the projection style, but now it's pretty obvious. And I think the ending is kind of sweet for the most part. It's okay. It's okay. The film is fine. I don't love it, and I certainly don't hate it. Like I said, it's just as decent as it could possibly be. It's kind of just a lame rip-off sequel. It's trying to rehash the first movie. But when Vincent Price has the couple of moments where he's starting to go a little crazy, and his friend and his fiance are kind of a little bit kind of skeptical of whether they should try to leave him alone or anything, that's a fun scene or two when they do that. And again, the third act with the smoke machine thing, that was pretty cool too. Not that I'm spoiling anything, but if you haven't seen the film, that third act was pretty neat. I like that a lot. It's a cool idea for an Invisible Man situation. But anyway, when it comes to The Invisible Man Returns, the 1940 film, if I had to rate this on a 5-star basis, I think I'd give it like a 3 out of 5. It was mostly a decent movie. It was a fine sequel. It wasn't bad. I'd like to see people try to show a little bit more respect to this, because there were some cool special effects, in my opinion. Some interesting stuff. I dug it. I thought it was pretty neat. So what are your thoughts on The Invisible Man Returns? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you think it was a little too late to even try to do this whole rehashing thing they did here? I still feel that way. I still think it shouldn't have been made, you know? I don't think The Invisible Woman's all that great either. I don't think it should be as existent as it is. It's not really talked about like the Claude Rains movie. I don't think any of these films are talked about the way the Claude Rains film is. But still, I like it. I don't love it. And I know there's another one later on called like Revenge of the Invisible Man, something like that. I don't know. It might be pretty good. I don't know. Anyway, what are your thoughts on this film? Put your thoughts in comments down below. Also, let me know your thoughts on the whole series, as a matter of fact. I'd love to hear all that down below. Anyway, thank you for watching, guys. May the Lord Jesus Christ bless you guys today, and goodbye.